I was hauling a late-night load through one of those old backroads in the heart of Appalachia, the kind that snakes through dense forest and forgotten hollows. I'd done this route 100 times, knew every twist, every dip, every old timber bridge that creaked under weight. That night, though, something felt off from the start. The radio was crackling more than usual, static buzzing in between the songs and weather reports, and the moon was half hidden behind clouds, casting everything in dull, shifting gray. I shrugged it off, thinking it was just one of those nights, and kept my eyes on the road. A fog started rolling in, low and thick, curling along the ground like smoke from a smoldering fire. At first, I didn't think much of it. Appalachian nights get foggy after rain all the time. But this wasn't normal. It pressed into the cab of my truck, cold and damp, smelling faintly metallic, almost like iron. I rolled the window up, but it seeped in anyway, clinging to my jacket, my hair. That's when I noticed the shapes. At the edge of my headlights, shadows moved in the trees, sliding between trunks and disappearing before I could look properly. I swore I saw someone or something standing there just beyond the brush. Every time I slowed, the fog thickened, curling tighter around the truck, as if it didn't want me to leave. I tried radioing dispatch, a routine check-in, but the static cut my words into fragments. There was a low, wet sound like heavy breathing, and it came from everywhere and nowhere at once. I told myself it was just nerves, that my brain was playing tricks after long hours behind the wheel. But when I glanced into the rearview mirror, I almost lost it. My reflection was wrong. The angle of my eyes, the set of my mouth. It wasn't me. Something was staring back. My hands gripped the wheel so tight I thought I'd crush the leather. The road, familiar and predictable, started twisting in ways I didn't recognize. Every turn I took seemed sharper, steeper, more unnatural. The trees leaned in, branches cracking and scratching at the cab, and I could swear I heard footsteps pacing alongside the truck, matching my speed, keeping time. I wanted to stop, to turn around, but instinct told me the moment I did, whatever it was would be on top of me in an instant. I kept moving, clutching the wheel, heart hammering in my chest like a sledge. Minutes felt like hours. The fog seemed alive, curling around the tires, climbing the mirrors, brushing my arms as I gripped the steering wheel. There was a smell now, wet earth and something fouler underneath, like decay just starting. Shapes danced in the corners of my vision. Barely there, but unmistakable. They weren't human, not exactly, but they weren't animals either. Something older, slower, patient. I kept my eyes on the road, blinked, and every time I looked away, they shifted closer, just beyond what I could see. I thought about screaming, about stopping, but the memory of one past winter night kept me silent. The time I'd pulled over for a flat and seen a pair of glowing eyes in the hollow. I had a feeling then, the same one I had now. If they saw me panic, if I let myself acknowledge them fully, there would be no coming back. So I drove, every nerve taut, listening to the creak of the truck and the whisper of the fog against the cab. At some point I felt it. The truck scraped, light but unmistakable, like claws had trailed along the doors. I didn't dare stop to check. The fog was lighter ahead now, thinning in patches, revealing the familiar twist where the road climbs out of the hollow. I wanted to believe it was over, that I'd just driven through a patch of unusual weather, maybe hallucinated from exhaustion. But I knew better. I could feel the weight of eyes on my back, even as the mist lifted, and the scratches on the truck were proof that I hadn't imagined it. By the time I reached the next town, the sun was just peeking over the ridges. Everything looked normal again, the road smooth and dry, the trees silent, the radio clear. I parked at the first diner I saw, hands still trembling, chest heaving. I avoided that back road for weeks afterward, circling miles out of the way just to get home safely. And even then, I would dream about the fog, about the shapes moving at the edges of my headlights, about the reflection that wasn't mine in the rearview. I can't explain it, and I don't know if I want to. There are roads in Appalachia that shouldn't be driven at night, and some things in the fog that shouldn't be seen, no matter how sure you think you are of what's real. I've never driven that route alone at night again, and I doubt I ever will. Some memories linger, heavy and damp like that fog, and they never quite let you go. I pulled into that rest stop around midnight, needing to stretch my legs after hours behind the wheel. The place was dead silent, except for the low hum of my engine and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. It was one of those old concrete stops, cracked and worn from decades of weather, isolated off a stretch of highway that rarely saw traffic. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered intermittently, casting long, wavering shadows that made the empty parking lot feel alive in some small, uneasy way. I stepped out, stretching, letting the cool night air settle on my shoulders, but there was something about the stillness that made my skin crawl. I started toward the restroom, flashlight in hand, trying to shake the unease off as just fatigue. That's when I heard it. Soft at first, almost indistinguishable, like the whisper of the wind. I paused, cocking my head, certain I'd imagined it. But then the sound got clearer, forming words, faint but distinct. My name. I froze. I called out, but my voice sounded small, swallowed by the night. The whispers didn't answer. They circled. The sound seemed to bounce off the cracked concrete, echoing back at me from angles I couldn't identify. My stomach twisted. There was nobody there, at least nobody I could see, yet the voice carried the certainty of presence, like someone was moving around me, just out of sight. My flashlight flickered once, twice, and in that brief flare of light, I saw it. A figure crouched by a vending machine, impossibly still, blending into the shadows, but the shape was too defined, too deliberate. My instinct screamed to run, my body froze. I could feel it watching me, waiting, and I swear I heard its breath, slow and wet, against the metal of the machine. The world shrank down to the circle of light from my flashlight and the echoing whispers that seemed to come from everywhere at once. I tried to move, my legs refusing, trembling violently. The whispers grew louder, repeating my name with a rasping insistence that made the hair on my arms stand on end. I blinked, and the figure was gone. I stumbled backward, heart hammering, until I finally found enough sense to sprint back to the truck. Slamming the doors shut behind me, I locked them instinctively, still hearing the faint whispers just beyond the glass, blending with the rustle of the surrounding woods. I fumbled with the ignition, hand shaking so badly I thought I'd leave fingerprints in the dash. As I drove away, the whispers didn't immediately stop. They lingered in the shadows of my rear view, faint, insistent, like breath carried on the wind. The trees lining the road seemed to lean closer, creaking in unnatural rhythm, and every reflection in my mirrors held shapes that weren't mine. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see that crouched figure running after me, but the woods were empty, silent, yet the feeling of being followed never left. By the time I reached the next gas station, the sun was just beginning to touch the horizon, but I couldn't shake the sensation of eyes on my back, of whispers curling in the edges of my mind. I kept driving for hours, never letting myself stop. The memory of that rest stop burned deep, a wound in my memory I couldn't ignore. Even now, I avoid that stretch of highway when the night is dark and the wind still, and I swear that when I pass other rest stops in the middle of the night, I hear the same rasping voice, calling my name softly, impossibly close. It leaves you wondering if you ever really saw anything, or if the place itself has a memory, a way of marking you, following you long after you've left. I'd been driving that stretch of road for hours, hauling a heavy load through the mountains, and the night was settling in thick and heavy. The kind of night where even the radio feels like it's playing underwater, distant and distorted, and every tree lining the road seems to lean in just a little closer. I was tired, eyes stinging, but I prided myself on knowing these backroads better than anyone. Every curve, every dip, every hollow I'd ever passed. That confidence vanished in an instant. Up ahead, in the turning lane, I saw a figure standing in the darkness. At first, I thought it was a hitchhiker, someone foolish enough to be out at this hour. But as I got closer, my headlights barely touching it, I realized it wasn't moving. Not even a flicker of motion, not a step aside. Just standing there. The shape was too dark, too still, like a silhouette carved out of shadow itself. My stomach sank, that familiar knot of fear twisting deep. I slowed, expecting it to step aside, or for some explanation, but it didn't. I blinked, and the figure didn't flinch, didn't breathe, didn't move at all. I tried to drive past slowly, holding the wheel tight, but as soon as my headlights passed, it was gone. Vanished. My mind raced. Maybe I'd imagined it, maybe exhaustion had warped the shadows, but the feeling of being watched, heavy and close, wouldn't let me go. The mirrors reflected movement that wasn't there, shapes flitting across the cab just at the edge of vision. I kept my eyes forward, trying to convince myself it was fatigue, but every instinct in my body screamed otherwise. The road seemed to twist, subtly different than I remembered. Curves were sharper, hollows deeper, and the trees, black against the sky, seemed to lean closer, listening. Over the CB radio, I caught fragments of sound. Screams, muffled and distant, like voices trapped behind a wall of static. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding louder than the engine, every muscle in my body tensed for something I couldn't see. I wanted to stop, to turn around, but something inside me told me moving was the only chance I had. Minutes felt like hours, and with every glance into the mirrors, I thought I caught a flicker of that shadow again. Always there, never fully visible, always on the edge. The fog rolled in patches, thick enough to blur the lines between road and woods, and I could hear branches snapping behind me, though I dared not look. The sound of something pacing, matching my speed, following just beyond the reach of my headlights, made the hair on my arms stand on end. By the time I reached the next town, the black shape was gone. The road looked ordinary again, the trees silent, the night calm as if nothing had happened. But I know what I saw, and I'll never forget the feeling of that figure waiting, patient, just outside the light. Driving alone on that stretch at night is a different experience now. Every shadow in the mirrors, every tree along the roadside, every flicker in the headlights makes my skin crawl. I know I wasn't imagining it. Something was out there, something patient and quiet, and it's waiting for the next traveler who thinks these roads are empty. I was running a late-night haul through one of the old forested hollows, the kind of road that winds between steep hills and thick stands of trees, where the only light comes from your headlights and the occasional reflection off a creek. It had been a long night, the highway behind me quiet and empty, and I was looking forward to getting through the hollow and onto the main road. Then, without warning, the engine died. No sputter, no warning, just sudden silence. One moment the truck was humming steadily, the next it was nothing but the quiet of the night pressing in around me. I got out, jamming the hood release and popping it open, flashlight in hand. The beam cut through the black, revealing the familiar curves of the hollow that should have been comforting, but the air was unnervingly still. No wind, no rustle of leaves, not even the sound of distant wildlife. That's when I noticed the tracks in the mud beside the truck. They were large, too large to be deer, and uneven, dragging slightly as if whoever or whatever made them didn't walk like a human should. My stomach tightened. I didn't know if I wanted to follow them or run back into the cab, but curiosity and fear rooted me to the spot. I stepped cautiously toward the tracks, flashlight sweeping, when I heard it. A low scraping sound, metal on rock, coming from somewhere in the shadows. My heart leapt into my throat. I spun the flashlight in the direction of the noise, and for a moment I thought I saw a hunched figure, moving with deliberate slowness, too quick to be a bear but too wrong to be human. Then it was gone, swallowed by the blackness between the trees. My pulse raced, hands slick with sweat, and I realized I'd been holding my breath. Every instinct screamed at me to get back in the truck, but my legs felt like lead. Finally, I jumped into the cab, slamming the doors shut and fumbling with the ignition. When the engine roared back to life, I didn't look back. I drove as fast as I could, tires kicking up mud, but I could still feel it, or them, watching, lingering in the rearview mirror, just at the edge of the light. The hollow itself seemed different, twisted somehow, the trees leaning inward, branches reaching toward the cab like long fingers. Even when the road straightened and the dense forest gave way to the main highway, that weight stayed with me. The scratches on the truck told me I hadn't imagined it. Deep, jagged gouges along the doors, the kind you'd only get if something had deliberately clawed at the metal. I've driven through that hollow dozens of times before, never had a problem, but that night changed everything. I never took that back road alone again, and I avoid it even in daylight. Some nights I can still feel the presence in the hollow, patient, waiting, like it's counting the hours until another truck comes through, and I wonder if it remembers me too. There's no explanation for what I saw, no comforting logic, only the memory of the tracks, the sound of scraping in the dark, and the feeling that something ancient and silent watches the hollows of Appalachia, waiting for anyone foolish enough to stop.